I think for me, it's really exciting that the tool and the user has taken it beyond what I expected it to be used. I think that's a really cool thing to see, especially as a founder, and especially in this age tech space where, you normally just want to build it for this specific purpose, but then your user ends up using it for more than what it is.
What if your tech tutor texted you back like a grandkid would? In this episode of the AgeTech podcast, I'm joined by Stefano Selorio from Carevocacy to talk about Apo, an AI-powered SMS-based tech tutor transforming digital literacy for older adults. Stefano, welcome to the show again.
Yes, thank you so much, Karen, for having me. Appreciate it. And I know this is what, the second, third time being here, so excited to be here again.
So yes, I'm very happy that we finally get a chance to have another conversation because our previous episode that we recorded is actually the second best performing episode of all time on the AgeTech podcast. So it got a lot of streams and downloads, which I'm grateful for. And I wonder, can you sort of bring our audience up to speed on what you and Carevocacy have been up to? The last time we talked, it was around the launch of Apo,
Yes.
and I
Yeah.
feel like you have a lot going on.
Yeah. So just to give everybody some context, I started Carevocacy because I'm a current caregiver to my grandma who's living with Alzheimer's. And actually, yesterday she turned 81 years old. So we celebrated. I had a little mini birthday for her. And so having that kind of ongoing experience is what kind of shaped what work I do now and the work that I continue to do and what I'm really passionate about, which is really helping caregivers like myself, but ultimately older adults have access to technology education. And when I first launched Carevocacy, it was during the pandemic. It was really just me tutoring older adults over Zoom, over Google Meet, helping them out one by one. Eventually, we were able to work with a few senior living communities. And then eventually, we were able to land a contract with one of the largest healthcare insurance companies, Humana, and helped about 23,000 of their Medicare Advantage patients, which was a huge learning journey for me, especially as someone who doesn't have a background, excuse me, in aging at all, but more so just a real experience. And then just having to learn about the technology space. And so that relationship with like a major Medicare Advantage plan was really interesting time and journey for me, and definitely for our team, and to take that on and really understand that, primary care and value-based care and also meeting people where they're at was definitely the way to reach older adults when it comes to digital literacy, or specifically digital health literacy. And so that's really kind of like how we landed ourselves on the map. And then about towards the end of that relationship with that plan, we started to develop Apple AI, which was really to create some sort of scalability to the work that we were doing. We understood that at some point we didn't have enough qualified digital health navigators to help older adults, especially in this country. And so, to kind of help with that huge demand, we needed to make sure we had the supply to provide that. And artificial intelligence and ChatGPT and the use case of SMS came into play, and that's where Apple AI came about. And Apple AI allowed us to basically scale the work that we're doing and reach more people in a much more accessible way by delivering them a tech tutor, basically, through SMS, through text messaging. And I like to say it's almost like a grandchild that you probably would have wanted that would have been able to help you when it came to technology issues, but it's even more than that. We're seeing people using it even from a companionship standpoint, where they're just asking and having a conversation with Apo, and just having conversations about culture events, and even more than just technology information. And so that's where we are. And then, as to fast forward to what we're doing now, Apo has been selected by the National Institute on Aging to be part of their 2025 Startup Challenge. And we have some amazing conversations down the road in 2025 that I'm really excited about to share, hopefully, in this episode. And hopefully, by the time this episode comes out, it all goes well. And I'm really excited because I think we have something that is a very simple solution, but also a very tough problem to solve, especially when it comes to reaching people and having them educate about the technology that's out there. And so there's a few things in the works I'm really excited about, but yeah, that's where we are. Apo AI right now, I believe, is in around 30 states. We have 30 users across 30 states. We're hoping to be nationwide by the end of this year, and I'm really excited about it because, again, being funded by a national agency will be something to put us on the map again.
Absolutely. And Apo, to the best of my knowledge, is like the first AI tech tutoring text messaging service. Am I correct?
I I like to claim so. I think so, especially in the age tech space. I believe we were definitely the first to provide an AI tech tutor to really help people, and in a very I would say the first SMS based tool that allows people to have an accessible way to reach a tech tutor. I think there's definitely people who've created amazing chatbots and amazing tools, but when we think about reaching a demographic that would necessarily prefer a much more easier way to have access to technology, especially those with smartphones, we believe we've created something that's a little bit more accessible, a little bit more scalable, and most importantly, measurable, which is something that is so important in this space.
Absolutely. So, what are some of the key takeaways from Apo? It's been in public availability for over a year right now, right?
Yeah, so I would say from a personal and founder standpoint about the key takeaways, I think something that I'm learning as we're kind of using this being our flagship product is that we're basically back to square one again as a company. I think learning, and I think that's an exciting thing because I've obviously created Carevocacy in that first half of providing those tech tutors and digital navigators in person, but to kind of transition to from a fully service-based model to a tech stack model, a SaaS model, has been really an interesting transition. One thing for me that I've learned is that it's a different sell when you're selling, like a service-based model versus a tech-based product. And I think the value that people place into that is very different and important. And so learning to navigate through that and also kind of explaining to individuals of like how simple the product is to onboard someone is something that is also surprising to me to kind of go interact with. So I think that's the biggest takeaway. I think because of the product has been there for about a year and a half, we're still in that growing pains of trying to figure out what is the best way to go to market, what's the best way to talk to customers, what's the best way to maintain our customers and our users as well. And so we're in that process right now, as like every other startup right now, of just trying to learn and maneuver through that. And I think the other takeaway from outside of the founder perspective is more so having conversations with people to collaborate with a tool like this. I think because of our past and our legitimacy and our work with the health tech space, with healthcare, with aging and senior living, we've created a reputation that a lot of people would rather work with in versus to when it comes to the usage of AI tools. And so it's interesting to see Apple AI take on this kind of, I think, a tool that can be used within existing platforms out there. Like, colleagues of ours are that we know are trying to look into artificial intelligence to be implemented into their platforms. And so, I'm having conversations with folks who, don't necessarily have a tech team, but would love to implement Apple AI into their existing platform and to have it be something that they could give a value add to their existing customers. And I think that's an interesting avenue that we've been looking at. And then the third thing that I think from a business model standpoint that I've been trying to explore is working with distribution partners. With distribution partners could mean anybody who either currently be selling technology to individuals or organizations, or existing organizations that sell some sort of platform, but they on top of it have like existing other technologies or products with that bundle with that platform. And so something I've been really interested in having conversations with is our new distribution partners, hopefully in 2025. And then the other thing is, as I said, I think it's so interesting because we set out to just let it be a tech tutor for people who, are just curious to ask more questions. But we're seeing conversations that are taking place that are outside of technology conversations. They're using it as a companion. They're using it to have a conversation once a day, twice a week, whatever, how they ever use it. I think for me, it's really exciting that the tool and the user has taken it beyond what I expected it to be used. I think that's a really a really cool thing to see, especially as a founder, and especially in this age tech space where you normally just want to build it for this specific purpose, but then your user ends up using it for more than what it is. And I think that's a great thing. And I hope to continue to see that more. And I'm really excited about that.
I'm super excited to see how this all develops. And I'm curious, yeah, I love the fact that you built Apo as an SMS text-based product rather than an app or a custom GPT. And I wonder sort of because tech tutoring is always a chicken and egg thing, right? Because a lot of the times you provide tech tutoring online via Zoom, and then if your users aren't even able to go on Zoom, then you inevitably miss a huge segment. So has Apo's SMS availability sort of compensated that? Does it allow you to reach people who don't use any technology at all, which is probably not a lot of people these days, but they still exist?
Yeah. I think well, again, coming from our experience from building this in the first place, we built this for actually one of the reasons why we built this tool wasn't just only so that we can scale our operation or scale to reach more people, but what we found was when we were providing tech classes in person in our work with Humana and these primary care centers, was that what would happen is that we would schedule a class on 1 week with them for 1 hour, and then the next class would happen either a week later or 2 weeks later, right? But what happens was that the retention between that first class and that second class would basically decrease, right? And the only problem was that we didn't have, in our contract with them, we didn't have people that could provide that support ongoing after post class, right? And so by creating this tool and giving them this tool, it allowed them to basically interact with a tech tutor like ourselves to have someone that they can ask questions on a consistent basis, which is, I think a really good thing because what ends up happening again is like they receive so much information about technology and then they lose out on that information because either they forget, they don't know how to apply it, or they just don't have somebody they can ask questions back to again. When it comes to reaching certain users, we definitely designed it so that we can reach a majority of smartphones or phones that have access to SMS. But I would say the precautionary thing is that individuals or organizations do have to sign up the user or the learner through a website first, and that's the best way to do it. And they only have to give us like a phone number and an email address. So we're not asking too much of the end user or the organization for that. But I do think we're reaching more people who normally would not have access to physical locations that would allow them to go to that location, ask somebody, and which I think is the best plus for us. But also, to be realistic, we know that there is also a population of older adults that may not know exactly how to do SMS or text messaging, or may have access to a smartphone. But I will say to that counter is that I believe communication, especially messaging or phone calls, is the best way to establish some sort of digital literacy relationship with older adults, right? We don't want to start them off with learning how to use ChatGPT or AI or going on a browser right away. I think the best way to reach people is through SMS and through texting and through phone calls. And and I will say from my experience in building this company, we've reached more people than in the first 3 months of launching Apo AI than the first 3 months of me launching Carevocacy, right? And I'm excited about that metric and that success rate for us. I do think there are opportunities and plans for in the future where we can expand this beyond SMS. But I think for me and for what we're trying to do, I think we're content with trying to solve that initial preventable problem when it comes to older adults facing the lack of digital literacy, which is the number one barrier that I see that's happening is that older adults don't necessarily, at least the ones that we work with, have a trouble with asking the first question. And so if we can get them to ask that first question by sending a message, by just simply reaching out to someone, it could be anyone, whether they believe them to be real, a human or not, but if they can just be curious and it allows them to have an answer back to them, I think that unlocks a lot of opportunities and doors for folks to have access to some sort of education when they normally don't. And I think for us, that's why we're trying to work with a lot of nonprofits, a lot of area agencies on aging, a lot of organizations that do amazing social work, and even ones who are currently doing existing technology support in the community. Like we're working with folks who are already doing technology education services for older adults because we know that that's hard work. I built that myself, but we now have a tool that can allow them to expand that work that they do and reach more people. And I think, so going back to repositioning ourselves to kind of like let us be the product that allows you to continue to do the work that you do. We don't necessarily have to be the ones that are on the ground anymore, but let's be the catalyst that allows you to expand that work. And I think that's really exciting. And so, yeah, I do think SMS is definitely a starter point. It's definitely a way to reach more people, but it's gonna be something that I think is still gonna be around for a while, especially now with everything that's happening, and to kind of reach more people, I think the best approach has been SMS.
I really, really, it's very interesting to hear you say that because I think it's an approach that not many startups take. I think the most like the first thing that tech companies do in general is just to build an app, and
Mhm.
that may not be the best way to reach everyone, and that may not be the best way to reach older adults. And I mean, for all of us, we only already have so many apps on our phones that we download, maybe open once and then forget about them. And when you have SMS, you can maybe be more proactive and also more like top of mind because they just
Yeah, I
save
think
Apo
I think
as
from
someone on
us,
their contact list.
yeah. So from a I always think about, I think this is what talks about a lot in the tech scene, about how do you create a relationship with your end user, or in our case, how do we create a relationship with our learner? And I think strategically being accessing them through SMS has been working in our favor because of the fact that, as you said, like we're saved onto the phone as a reliant contact that they can save onto the phone so they can reach out to. On top of that, instead of having to have an additional application that they have to go through, they also are able to look at the conversations and the answers and the questions that they ask and have it be almost like a note taking or some sort of way to keep record of those questions that I've asked. Because what typically happens, I think, and we don't think about this, but when you go into Google, right, you may have your search history, yes, but what usually happens is what I see a lot happens is they go into a browser and then they just type up their question on a Google or browser, but they use the same web page, and so they don't remember what they asked before. And so what happens is of that unless they know how to go to the search history. And so I think being able to do it through SMS allows that conversation thread to be able to be seen. And then again, involving caregivers like myself in the process allows them to also be able to say, hey, they can share to their loved one that this is the conversation that they've been having with this tool to learn more about technology. And that way the caregiver doesn't necessarily have to go through another application or browser or some sort of loophole just to find out what that conversation's like, because now we've made it easier for folks to access that. And so I do think, for newcomers into the age tech scene, I do think people should definitely look into creating a little bit more simpler products, especially reaching simpler, but not reducing the fact that older adults can still have complex interactions with these products. But ultimately, I think approaching it through SMS and making sure we reach a mass market is something that we're thinking about all the time. And that's why I'm like, when I said like we've been able to reach way more people in the span of the first 3 months versus the first time I did this in the first 3 months, is because of how accessible SMS has been. And I never would have thought in within the first year of our launch or anything that we'd be able to reach states across the country or users across the country with this tool. I thought I'd be in Florida for the rest of our company, but to basically be able to build this and kind of reach more people is something great. And we have a few international users as well too. So this tool can be used across. And so it's interesting to see and to be able to also see people who use it in different languages. I don't know if I was able to mention this, but this tool speaks in about 50 languages. And so it's really interesting to have conversations with it in their own language as well. And so at the end of the day, I think it's all about trying to build something simple so that they can have an access to a solution that typically would take them either a day or more, or physically take them longer to have access to that information. So hopefully we've made that a little bit easier for people.
It sounds like you definitely did. I wonder, you mentioned that you have users in 30 states and also internationally. So, how did you spread the word so far?
Yeah, so I will say it's still an experiment for now. As I said, we're in this state of like trying to figure out exactly what's the best fit for this. But if you don't know me already, the best use case for us of spreading the word of the work that we've done has ultimately just been using social media. I think it's been one of the best tools that we've used. We've reached people through TikTok, through Instagram, especially LinkedIn as well, and reaching people via that way. I think the biggest thing has been creating stories and Instagram reels and TikTok videos and fun little posts about the work that we're doing and reaching more people. And then ultimately, we've been asked to speak about artificial intelligence in the world of aging, senior living, and when it comes to caregiving. So those have been some really great opportunities for me, like especially about a year ago. I think when we first met each other physically, was at San Francisco at the On Aging conference, and they had asked me to speak on artificial intelligence when literally 3 months before that we had just launched Apo AI like officially, and so it was that whole year was like a whole roller coaster of basically being invited to speak at events and meet a lot of people, and I think that's been the best way for us to kind of and ultimately, it's been a lot of word of mouth. I think we have a really good job. I do a really good job in building those relationships with people and making sure that our product is helping and measuring those outcomes as much as we can so that we can reach and really impact individuals and learners. And so, honestly, social media has been our best friend for when it comes to that. As you probably know, but it's really been a tool that has reached more people that I hope someday that I can meet, but reach people that I know that I would never be able to meet. But it's been interesting to see that and take that on its own. And so another thing that we're exploring as well is something I'm trying to do for next year is doing like webinars and other things. I know that's nothing new, but like I have somebody who I've been trying to work with who's been really encouraging me to do webinars, to do those things, to put that out there. And that's something that I'm really excited about to do hopefully next year to create more content around that and kind of help people guide them through the use case of AI, especially in the aging industry when sometimes, things like that don't necessarily mend well together. And so, yeah, that's been our way of spreading the word about Apple AI.
Absolutely. And if is there anyone in the audience who isn't following Stefano yet, I encourage you to go and follow Stefano in all of your social media networks because his content is not only educating but also entertaining. So whenever
Yes.
Stefano's posts pops into my feed, I make sure I turn up the volume and tune in.
Did you say turn off the volume or you said turn on the volume?
Turn on, turn on,
I was like,
because it's always
geez.
off.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know we're talking about, Apple AI, but I honestly believe social media is such a powerful tool, a free tool for a lot of our colleagues to utilize and tell stories. I have a good friend that you probably know, Cameron Graham from Story Care, I believe.
Yeah.
And he would joke around with me. He said he would never be into, social media influencer and stuff like that. And guess what? I just saw him today upload a video that was like influencer like. And so I was like, haha. I just texted him. I said, look, I told you, man, this is the best way to put yourself out there and then put word and to put a face to the work that you're doing. Because again, we can get
Exactly.
distracted by the technology and the organizations that we run, but if they don't know who the people are behind this technology, they'll never really buy in or trust the product enough. And so I think that's something that we've been able to uniquely position ourselves in. And there's a video I posted kind of sharing about the story about Apo AI that reached a lot of people, and especially the Filipino culture, the Filipino people, because I named this product after the Filipino word Apo, which is basically means grandchild or grandson, granddaughter, interchangeable. But it was a word that my grandma would call me because she didn't know my name, and bless her for her Alzheimer's, but it's just she didn't know my name, and so she resorted to that word to call me, and that's the inspiration for it. And so using social media and using those videos to kind of share my story and how we got here has been like a total benefit for us, and it's something that I know that we're going to be known for and we're going to continue to use. And I just can't wait because, as I said, there's a few plans down the road that I'm really excited about, that even like our collaborations that are happening in the next few months, I'm really excited about, that will be definitely shared on social media.
Absolutely. And like 99% of the founders in the AgeTech ecosystem have a personal origin story for why they started their company. And I
Yeah.
think it really humanizes the startup, and it really helps people see the people behind the technology and the people behind the product. And it builds trust in a way that very few things can, especially free things like social media.
I'm curious,
So
Karen.
speaking of,
My
go ahead.
I was gonna
Yeah.
ask you something quickly, actually. What have been you've been using social media as well to your advantage? Like, what has been some, like, I guess for everybody in the audience, kind of listen and hear about, like, what's been your takeaways from using social media, and like the benefits that you've been able to reap from using social media as like your way to spread the word of what you do. Like, I'm curious because I've said that, I've shared that. I'm curious from your perspective, like, what have you gotten out of it
Well,
as you continue to use social media?
it's a good question, and people in on YouTube watching us, let us know in the comments what's your takeaway. For me, I think it made my career basically. I don't think I would have been where I am today if it wasn't for social media. Like when I initially started creating content and when I created the first HTech market map, I was very, I guess, scared to put it out there.
Mm,
And once I sort of overcame this barrier and said, okay, there's no point in creating content unless I'm spreading it, and then sort of everything changed. And I created a lot of really solid relationships. I met a lot of interesting people from all over the world. I mean, the best part of doing what I do is that I get to have a lot of interesting conversations with interesting people from all over the world. And I meet only a small portion of them in conferences, and most of them through social media. So that's like, it's been a game changer for me.
you hear it here, folks. It's a huge game changer for both of us. So I don't know. Somebody should use social
Absolutely.
media for their startup or for their HTech company.
Well, all of them are. I review companies' websites and companies' social media accounts all the time. Everyone, all of the startups use
Wait,
social
you
media
you do
to
that
some
too? I
extent.
do that too.
Yeah, of
I
course.
do that too. We got just digress, but like we gotta create a tier list of the companies that do the best social media in age tech. Like, this is like someone who's doing it really well and someone who could do better. I'm just saying that I feel like that'd be a really funny
You,
graphic to put on LinkedIn.
you could go ahead and do that. I don't know if I'm the best person to give grades because sometimes I myself am not as consistent as I should be. However,
Yeah,
what
same
I,
here.
I do notice is that some startups really put in an effort, and you can see that some startups have a social media manager, and for others it's more like an afterthought. We had this like
Mm,
some startups you will see like consistent posting on specific social networks that will reach their target users or buyers or both. And for others,
yeah.
it's like just, posting a company event on LinkedIn or we're hiring on LinkedIn, which is great, but it doesn't necessarily make a long-standing impact with all of the noise that we have because there is so
Mm,
much noise today. It's very hard to like make your presence known and to make your voice heard. That's why I love founders who do these,
yeah.
who make it personal, who post their own experiences as a founder, who build in public, because I think that type of content does manage to rise above the noise.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, say you were speaking about like future plans, and you just announced that you were accepted, or Carevocacy was accepted to the NIA Startup Challenge. So tell us all about it. Like
Yeah.
what made you apply, and also what is going to happen with Carevocacy? Like what is, because this is a very long program. It's a few months. It's sort of like a
Yeah.
sort of an acceleration program that's government funded and led.
Yeah, I would say totally unexpected to be part of this challenge. I mean, obviously, when you apply for these things, you expect to get in, but sometimes you don't expect to get in, right? Because this is our I believe our second or third time applying for this, and so we didn't get in for those first and second, obviously, and so I think at the time we were just not ready. And now that Apo AI has kind of somewhat matured as a product, and we have some sort of substantial traction to demonstrate that, or even then, if we didn't have substantial traction, this program really supports new and up and coming entrepreneurs into the aging space to really solve what I believe are really amazing problems to solve, but also what the NIA really wants us to solve when it comes to the startups that are in this challenge. I do want to preface by saying I do not represent the NIA. So if I make a mistake by, talking about this later, I apologize. But they definitely have an amazing website that kind of details what these finalists like ourselves are going to go through for the next few months. So I highly recommend it. If you just type up NIA Startup Challenge 2025, you're able to find out information about that. And I highly recommend for the next cohort, if you're interested, to apply, because again, you have people who are like myself, who are a little bit experienced in the space, excuse me, or they're developing a new product like Apo AI, and then you have amazing people who have like deep background in research and academia and who are part of institutions who are also in this cohort right now, and so they're building amazing products. So just to give you guys a little bit of snippet of what's going to happen in the next few months for us, out of about 275 applicants, excuse me, 20, I believe 20 were selected. 21 actually. 21 finalists were selected out of the 275 people that applied. And the 21 finalists in the first stage will be receiving basically entrepreneurship training sessions. That's why they'll be flying us out to Philadelphia next week to be attending workshops in person to learn more about how we can improve our business model, our business plan, our company, and overall, and meet some amazing people in the science community. They will also assign us a mentor, individuals who are obviously experienced individuals, whether it be in entrepreneurship and life science. And so that'll be really exciting to see. And I'm really excited about that because I love like networking, meeting new people, and then more people into our TikTok videos. And also really sponsoring a few conferences that will be able to be attend under the guise of this Startup Challenge Accelerator. And then on top of that, which I think is so important for startups today, is funding. So those 21 finalists, like myself, will be receiving $10,000 cash for being part of this program. Excuse me. And then we'll have the chance to receive additional prizes as well in stage two of this. So we'll be in this program for about, I believe, about 6 months basically, and so we'll be here for a while. We'll also be attending a few conferences in the future, showcasing the work that we're doing. But I'm more excited, honestly, from like learning from people who are in the deep research background. My background's in marketing and business development and a little bit of like no code building, but I'll be working with people or these other startups or these companies who have done amazing research, amazing literature, amazing work around computer science, life science, and they're just like founders like myself who either have an origin story that are excited to be supported by a federal agency that supports this type of work. And so I'm really excited about that. I will be documenting. I'm actually planning to post a video today or tomorrow because we just had our first meeting with everybody over Zoom. So I'll be documenting that journey. That way, people who are interested in this program can see a point of view from someone who's going through this accelerator program and also be able to know exactly how it is as you go through this program. Because there are going to be workshops and classes that will train us to be able to get more funding through government grants and stuff like that. So that's what we're excited about. So hopefully, this gives my social media, my platform, will give access to folks who are interested about this program and could apply for this program, or who might be interested in finding funding opportunities this way versus looking at private investment. And so that's what I'm really excited about. And there's some amazing people at the NIA team that I got to meet through a bunch of conferences, whether it be through Mary Furlong or on aging or through ARP. But there's just amazing people who have been able to meet through this program, and I'm really excited about that. And I'm really excited about it because I get to document it on my phone and put it on my TikTok, on my LinkedIn, and just share like how excited I am because I think, again, as I said, it's an opportunity to learn from other people from wide different backgrounds. And hopefully, I get to also share some of my experience with them as well and how they can best leverage social media or storytelling and be able to share the work that they're doing in the world. So I'm really excited about that.
I'm super excited to watch it on your social media, and because I'm sure it will be interesting to sort of see what the insider experience looks like and
I,
feels
I
like. We
don't I
don't.
don't think
I
we
don't think
I
we
don't
get
think we see
that.
that enough. No, I don't think so. Yeah. I feel like there's like I don't know if it exists yet, but like Techstars, Longevity, or the ARP AgeTech Collaborative, or I believe there's another one that I'm not recalling. But
The
um
birdhouse in
the
Europe. Yeah, we haven't seen any
birdhouse,
startup
the mass
document.
challenge.
Yeah.
There's no POV from the founder's perspective on going through that journey, honest or the reality, the transparency. I mean, I'm sure they're amazing organizations, that are running these groups, but there's really no like, oh, okay, that's what that founder is really going through as they're navigating through it. And I think I feel I have a unique perspective because I've been here for about 5 years now, or about to be 5 years. And so navigating what I may have already known and what I am looking to learn is something that I'll be interested in. But then also documenting that I think would be interesting too, because I don't think we see that a lot. Like there's a bunch of
We
Y
don't.
Combinator startups that document their journey in Y Combinator, but there's never like startups that are documenting their journey through Birdhouse, HR Collaborative, or this NIA Startup Challenge,
Yeah.
which I think would be an interesting, again, point of view to having that
Yeah.
access information and allowing people to be able to learn more about those organizations, but then also on top of it, decide whether they're the best fit for that ongoing accelerator or that program.
Absolutely. And
So,
to be fair, I know that we don't have a lot of founders in our ecosystem with a marketing background like you. Off the top of my head, I can only think of another one. And I have a feeling that it comes more natural to you to
yeah.
just document and storytell on the go. Whereas for most other people, they probably wouldn't know how to do it or where to
Yeah,
start.
I could definitely see that. I don't think it's even, it's so funny. When I first started, I didn't want to be the face of Carevocacy. Like I really didn't want to be in front of the camera. I did a lot of that before I started Carevocacy. And so to put myself in front of the camera again in this business was really like a pushing myself kind of moment, I will say. And not a lot of people know this, but like I really did not want to be the face. I wanted us just to be like speaking in third person. I wanted us to say we are Carevocacy, we are this and we are that. Like and then I realized I was like, it's just me. And so like I think yes, people are not natural storytellers or are in front of the cameras, but I think if you're really passionate about the work that you do, there's no one better but yourself to tell the story and the work that you do. I think deeply rooted for me as to why I do this in the first place, of like why I share and be transparent about my journey, is because I don't see a lot of people myself in this space when it comes to the age tech scene. And I want people to have access, right, into information that allow them to basically make the best decision for themselves. And it kind of relates to what we do now for older adults, and giving them access to education and information, and to allow them to have the decision based off of that information. And so I've that's kind of like I think what's rooted as to why I do it. I mean, on top of all the storytelling, the TikTok dances, and the fun videos, I love that I'm giving access to somebody who may have never thought about age tech before, or who are in age tech, but allows them to have a much more educated, accessible way to find out about how that's going. And I think that's kind of why I do it. Plus, on top of the fact that maybe speaking engagements and like free followers come on top of it. But at the end of the day, I love that I'm giving access to people. I actually fun story, and then I'm like digressing now. But on HE conference, I was able to meet somebody who who has been following me for a while, and you probably know this experience too, Karen. But like who's been following us for a while, and they came up to me and they're like just sharing about how they just love like seeing the journey and how I'm like being real about it, and that made me like tear up. Like I don't ever think about those things and I'll ever meet people like that, but like when someone comes up to you and tells you that they're like supporting you from far away and distance, like that means a lot. And I think that goes a long way, especially for founders in this stage. And so those are just some of the definitely the big things about why we should definitely put ourselves out there. So yeah, stay tuned for that POV. I'll be tracking it out. I'll try to make a whole fun story about it. I'll try to make it fun, as much as fun as I can, and what an accelerated program can be. But yeah, I'm really excited about about this new chapter for Carevocacy, because it's putting our name on the map, but also making us a little bit even more legitimate as a product, and making it more substantial when it comes to using AI and addressing the digital literacy gap.
Absolutely. So I don't have any more questions. Before we wrap up, would you like to say something to our audience? Any call to action? Anything we didn't talk about that you would like to add?
I I would say obviously check us out on Carevocacy.com. Best way to get involved with me is to reach out on LinkedIn, and if you type up my name, you will definitely see my face. And the best way is that we're always open to collaboration, and understanding how we can work together is, I think, the best way to grow this place. And when I say place, I mean the age tech market. I'm definitely the type of person, and we've had this conversation before, Karen, about collaboration is key to reach more people and to benefit more people. When we isolate ourselves and try to create this market that's only private to ourselves, we end up really making it harder for our end users and older adults to have better access to solutions. And I think that's so important when it comes to the world of aging, that we have options laid out in front of us, and that we decide on our own to take on that option. And I think that's the best way for older adults to have access, especially when it comes to technology education and etc. So I'm really excited about what we're doing and how we're going to build on that. And then on top of that, as I've already said before, using social media is the best way to put yourself out there, and then support other people who are creating stuff like yourself, Karen, or who are creating content, who are creating information, who are creating education, who are creating, I think, support them, whether it be commenting on their LinkedIn, whether it be subscribing to their YouTube channel, whether it be following them on TikTok, whether it be all those things compound and are really helpful. And so if you have a chance to do that just by pressing a like button or following them, like please do that. Those things help out a lot. Like you never know. And so that's my advice for anybody out there to just support. And I'm more than happy to support other people as well in the space.
Absolutely. Thank you for this message, Stefano. It is really, really important to, first of all, build partnerships within the ecosystem. Like you said, it just makes the technology more accessible to more people and just supporting one another. And you know what? I think my favorite thing when people ask me why I like to do what I do is I feel like we are in such a supportive ecosystem. I feel like everyone is rooting for each other and everyone is very supportive of one another. And so I feel like we're in a, as an ecosystem, I feel like we're in a really good place, and just hopes it keeps up this way.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much for joining me on the show again. It was an absolute pleasure having you, and I wish you lots and lots of success in the NIA Startup Challenge, and I can't wait to read your posts and watch your videos.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I'm really excited about it. As I said, hopefully this will be an exciting journey for people to see, and I can't wait to share more. And the next time that I'll be on here as well too to share the progress and the updates, and hopefully our growth over the years. So thank you so much for having me, Karen.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this conversation, you will love our episode with Abby Ritchie from the Smarter Service, which provides tech concierge services in senior living. I'll put the link right here. Until next time, stay humble, stay curious.